In this movie, we will talk about how the move, rotate, and scale tools work. You can see that my move tool is already selected and the hotkey is W. I'm going to select this object. Firstly, what is this little box around my object? That is called a selection bracket, and if you don't want to see that selection bracket at all times, you can simply right-click on the viewport label, go to Configure, and turn off Use Selection Brackets. So right now, to see my object if it's selected or not, I'll just hit F4 so you can see how the object's highlighted white. This is my move manipulator. A common thing across 3D softwares is that the axis handles are color-coded. So XYZ is RGB, or red, green, and blue. So you can see right now if I just go really close, my X-axis is red, Y-axis is green, and my Z-axis is blue. I can also take the size of this move manipulator up and down by pressing plus on the keyboard, or minus. If your axis handle disappears for some reason, simply press X to get it back. So X kind of toggles between no axis handle and getting it back. So how do you move the object? Well, to simply move the object in one axis, just click and drag, click and drag. To move the object in two axes, you can just go right here. So right now you can see I'm moving the object on the X and Z plane. And you should also be watching right at the bottom over here. You can see how I'm moving the object on the X and Z plane. If I go over here, on the Y and Z plane, and if I go to the bottom, the X and Y plane. You can also right-click on the Move tool to get something called a Move Transform type in. And there's two areas over here, absolute world and offset world. In the same absolute world and offset world, you can also do from the bottom over here. Like right here, I'm in absolute. If I click on this, it's offset. So what is the absolute and what is the offset? Well, right now, if I just take my object and put it back at 0, 0, 0, which is my origin right here, I'll just do this. And this is a little trick in Max. If you right-click on any spinner, it goes to 0. So my object is back at 0, 0, 0 right now. So if I type in 5 units, you can see how the object moved in 5 units. If I type in 5 again in the absolute world area, nothing happens. Let's go back to 0. Let's try the offset world right now. If I type in 5 units, the object moves 5 units. If I try 5 more, you can see that the object total, it moved 10 units if you look at the bottom over here. So it's adding on to whatever I'm typing in. So that's really your move tool. Your rotate tool, this is your rotate manipulator. To move the object in 3 axes, I'm just going over here and just moving it. And you can see at the bottom, it's moving on the 3 axis. Again, X, Y, Z is RGB. Right now I'm moving on 1 axis. And you can see also when I'm moving, it also is giving me a little display over there saying how much I'm moving. If I go back to 0, let's just type in. If I want to exactly rotate, let's say 90 degrees, I use these buttons over here called angle snap. AS is the hotkey for them. So right now if I rotate, you can see it's telling me right on top of there exactly how much I'm rotating. It's kind of snapping to all those units. So right now exactly 90 degrees. I can also go back negative 90. Be careful about these buttons. Let's turn them off. AS, angle snap. Just like the move tool, if you right click on the rotate tool, you have the absolute world and the offset world. You also have the scale tool over here, and you can see there's that little button again. So there's 3 buttons on the scale tool, like the scale, non-uniform scale, and the select and squash. So for the scale tool, I can simply go here, and if I go to the center, I'm scaling uniformly. If I go here, I'm scaling non-uniformly, or I can simply go to this button right here. If I would just want to scale on one axis, just go down like this. In the center, it's uniform. And then finally you have something called a select and squash, which will kind of squash my object like that. Again, if we right click on the scale tool, and I can also scale uniformly from here. So the absolute world and the offset world. One more thing you can do in Max is you can access a lot of different things from a lot of different menus. So for example, move, rotate, and scale, I can access them from here, or I could do WER, or I can also right click and go to move, rotate, scale, and also select. And look how it's also giving me these little option boxes. So if I click on this one right now, that's my move, transform, type in, right click, go to rotate, click on this, my rotate, transform, type in, right click, go to scale, and that will give me my scale, transform, type in.